The following video is our interpretation of what will happen with the Star Wars films. All knowledge pretense to the Star Wars films being released is based on past experience from said director and or possibly writer of the new Star Wars movie. I am intensely hope for the continued success of the Star Wars and Star Trek franchises up to this point and to future events that may or may not occur after the present ones of the discussion in this video. Just so that we're clear, I don't hate J.J. Abrams, I just don't think he may or may not be a good fit for this. Hey everyone, this is TV Pop Culture, episode 55. I'm CJ.
Noah. I'm Wong Ball.
So joining us today for the first time on the show is Wong Ball. We're very excited to have him here. He has been with the show previously, but unfortunately has never actually stepped into any of the videos. You took a leave of absence and have recently come back from that, so we're...
Sabbatical. I went out into the wilderness and learned to control my powers.
And what powers do you possess?
The power to look really good in this hat.
I see.
I as you can tell, I haven't totally mastered it yet, though.
Doug Walker, prepare to meet your match.
That's right. How do you get off the beard?
So now, we were going to start this episode off with a bit of a debate, mainly because J.J. Abrams, who has previously directed the reboot for the Star Trek franchise, has been said to be directing and may possibly also be writing the new Star Wars movies.
No. Wait. I thought the guy who wrote Toy Story 3 was writing episode 7.
It's just a rumor that I've heard.
No,
that he may be writing it.
No, I'm pretty sure it was confirmed the guy...
They confirmed it before
was it
J.J.
confirmed?
Abrams was confirmed, yeah.
Yeah, it was confirmed.
Oh, okay.
But
'Cause I
Patrick
hadn't
Stewart
found
is
that
not
yet.
going to be in the new Die Hard movie, sadly.
At least we still have Bruce Willis.
Yes, we do have Bruce Willis.
Yeah, that's true. So I will be taking the side of the people who are against J.J. Abrams
We all know
taking
what that
on this
really
property. I'm trying to be nice about it. And
Nerd
Wong Ball,
rage!
yes,
Nerd rage!
and Wong Ball here will be defending him. So, would you like to make the opening statement?
Alrighty. Well, first good thing about Episode 7, George Lucas is not in the director's chair, the admittedly double-wide director's chair. And we always know that's a good thing. I mean, a lot of people out there say Empire, Return of the Jedi, those are their favorite Star Wars movies, which I believe Lucas didn't direct.
Right.
So, there's a point in his favor, but let's look at J.J. Abrams himself. The man is good at taking classic icons and elements of cinema and distilling them to their basest form, their most basic format. Then he mixes it up, adds a little bit of his own flair, and puts it back out there maybe better than it was before. You know, Super 8, great love letter to E.T., you know, as a whole. Look at the Star Trek reboot. It has its pros and cons, but he did admittedly take Star Trek back to its core format, which is something that it sorely needed, especially after the abysmal box office performance of Nemesis, the cancellation of Enterprise. A lot of people felt Star Trek had lost its relevance, much as people felt Star Wars had sort of taken a bit of a slump. So if J.J. Abrams can do CPR on this, seawater puking franchise, then it's a good thing.
Okay. Well, first off, I'd like to say that I don't have anything against J.J. Abrams as a person. I've never met the guy. From what I've seen in interviews, he seems like an okay guy. I have to disagree with you on Star Trek because, now I know he didn't write it. I know that all he did was he was the director, and I believe he also produced it. Isn't that right?
Lens flares to the max.
Yes. So, which is one of the things that most annoyed me in it, but we're going to leave that. So, as leaving aside the fanboy nitpicks such as the lens flares, the fact that Uhura is now with Spock, yeah, and also the fact that it's another original series character movie, which, in my personal opinion, I think they've had more than enough for that cast of characters. When his team his writing staff was tasked with finding a new plot for Star Trek, they pretty much just borrowed the plot of Top Gun, except cut out the volleyball scene.
You mean Top Phaser?
Yeah. which really, like, in my opinion, after I saw that movie, is probably what they should have called it. I mean, okay, we look at his career so far. The most memorable TV series that he's done, one of those being Lost, wasn't terribly great.
One thing, though, he gets a lot of unfair flack for Lost, but he was actually only ever involved in an executive producer capacity at the very beginning.
Yeah.
So don't hold Lost against him.
No, I'm not holding that against him too much. But there's none of them were. Yeah, that's a episode all in of itself. There's Lost, which wasn't really all that terrific. Out of the 3 movies he has directed and produced, the best of which in my opinion was MI3, the most I can say about it was unoffensive. It didn't hurt. It passed the time. Not everyone needs to be a creative genius. We need people to direct our boring slasher films, our typical horror movies, our Jason Statham movies. Not everyone needs to be a creative genius, but Star Wars and Star Trek both deserve better than that. There's also the fact that I'd like to make that for the first time in media history, the power of these 2 ginormous franchises will be under the sway of one man. I'm tempted to compare that to being both elected Pope, Dalai Lama, and President of the United States.
So J.J. Abrams is the new Palpatine. Power! Unlimited power!
And in a way, yes.
Marvelous.
Kind of
this worries me, mainly because of what I've seen with Star Trek. With what he did with that franchise, I really disagree with that. The fact that he went and did this whole alternate universe thing, the fact he blew up Vulcan to begin with.
That was the writers.
And, well, okay,
technically
yes.
it imploded.
You know what I mean, though.
I sure do.
And in all honesty, I mean, who does this guy think he is? And I'm not talking about him paying his dues. Mr. Abrams has been around for a long time and has paid a lot of dues. But if, for example, say Neil Blomkamp of District 9 was getting to do Star Wars, I wouldn't say, who does this guy think he is? Because we know who he is. We saw District 9. It was an amazing movie. It's passionate. Anything that inspires any kind of passion or romanticism or any kind of emotion with Mr. Abrams, we've yet to see. Again, going back to MI3, the best thing I can say out of all the movies he's produced and directed was it wasn't offensive.
Can I offer a counterpoint to that? I think MI3 actually had some great emotional chops to it. Look at the opening scene of that movie, where Philip Seymour Hoffman's character is holding Ethan Hunt's wife at gunpoint.
Right.
And he's counting down, and Ethan Hunt has no idea what to do. He doesn't know what this guy wants. He's like, where's the rabbit's foot? He's like, I don't know. Isn't that what I gave you? And he shoots her in the leg. He's like, I'm going to count to 10. And he's counting down this whole time, 3. And he's like, look, I'll help you. And Ethan is just desperate. He's desperate to save his wife, and nothing will stop this guy. Nothing will stop him. It goes all the way down, 9, 10, and then we see a gunshot, and then the movie starts.
Okay.
That is emotional wildfire. I mean, we know Ethan Hunt cares about his wife, and we know that something terrible is going to happen. I mean, there is nothing more visceral than this man's utterly helpless desperation. This goes beyond James Bond, all right? Barring that George Lazenby movie. Okay. James Bond has never seen fit to settle down. All right, then let's look at Super 8. Sure, it was kind of inoffensive, but I mean, on the other hand, you've got that whole thing with the kid and his family, and then the girl that he meets, and the whole stuff with her dad and her. It's a very intricate, interconnected story. Actually, I thought it was pretty emotional, and I think also that it's not really fair to compare him to Neil Blomkamp, because I think J.J. Abrams paid a lot more dues than Neil Blomkamp. Not to say that one of them worked harder than the other, but look at what Abrams has put out. Alias, Fringe, Cloverfield, Super 8, the new Star Trek film, Mission Impossible 3, whereas, from Blomkamp, we have only District 9. He's still making a name for himself. Now, he does have another movie coming out this year called Elysium, I believe.
I think that's it, yeah.
Yeah, with Matt Damon, and I'm looking forward to that. But Abrams has more than proven himself.
I'm, again, going back to that, I'm not saying he hasn't paid his dues, but I've noticed for the past decade and a half that at the point where we left off in the 90s with things like Batman and Robin and Batman Forever, there was the Superman movie that came later on, the Spider-Man movies. Okay, yes, Batman and Robin and Batman Forever could be argued as being bad movies. And if someone said that they were bad movies, I can't necessarily argue with them on it. They aren't perfect, but that can also be said for the Superman Returns movie, and in some ways for the Spider-Man movies after that. What I've noticed is we've moved from the point where we were more than willing and extremely excited to allow directors with artistic vision to take on our franchises, to now we're perfectly fine with people doing the same boring corporate group focused projects that, yes, artistically may look very appealing, but has no underlining soul to it. I mean, look at this past year, The Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh, God.
Aside from whoever thought it'd be a good idea to put flare muzzles on the web shooters, the costume looked very nice. But the story was all over the place. The casting looked lost and confused. It looked like the director fell asleep at the chair. The same can be said for the Green Lantern movie. And in a way, having Mr. Abrams take on not only Star Trek, but Star Wars, feels like we're not only not doing anything about it, but condoning it as well. What I want to know is, okay, yes, some of us obviously want better, but do we deserve better? Because from what I've seen so far, I kind of don't think that we do. I mean, if this is how we're going to act, if we're going to, the mass population of us, cheer on Mr. Abrams for making what I would call a debacle of a Star Trek film, do we really deserve something better than it? That's my question I'd like to ask everyone.
Well, it's a good question, and admittedly, gone are the days of. It's easy to think that the days of artistic vision are gone. Movies like Blade Runner or Tim Burton's Batman Returns, everything has a sort of distinctive feel to it, And we've got a little bit of that back with the Dark Knight trilogy, I think. Christopher Nolan invested a lot of his personal vision and aesthetic into those movies, which is why the Dark Knight is like a vision of. It's almost operatic, Okay. And it's true that guys like Abrams, maybe they're not Hitchcockian, They're not exactly making a Van Gogh, but here's my original opinion of the Star Trek reboot when it came out. I felt maybe it wasn't the best Star Trek movie, but it was still a good movie. And I think in this age of reboots and, makeovers, Batman and Robin, that was, I think, the straw that shattered the camel's frozen back. So along comes Nolan, and they make Batman Begins because we need a fresh start. It was the same with Star Trek. I mean, I can understand it's really unfair that Deep Space Nine and Voyager got neglected when it came to the feature films. Although, to be fair, Voyager didn't always put on a stellar performance. That was in part because of studio executives trying to turn into another Star Trek Next Generation. But all that aside, I think the Next Generation crew had their turn, and they didn't exactly make the most of it. Generations, sure, they had the guy from A Clockwork Orange. They had some really good writing, good emotion. It was one of the only Next Generation films that did anything different with the characters. They killed off Picard's family. They did that stuff with the Enterprise. First Contact was a great movie, for all its elements of the Wrath of Khan, like, bringing up a villain from the TV show that was really popular, Moby Dick quotes.
Yeah.
But, again, it didn't really do anything different. Everything reset. They actually wanted Data to, spoiler alert, keep his flesh that he gets in the movie. They wanted him to keep that, but no, they took it away because, reset button, status quo. The same with Insurrection, the same with Nemesis. Nothing ever changed. And the other characters in the franchise were ignored to the point where Nemesis felt like I was watching Picard and Data fan fiction the whole time. Practically
I can't argue with you on that.
Yeah.
Luckily, it didn't get weird fan fiction.
Oh, well, I'm sure it's there. I'm sure it's there. So
boy.
I feel that they lost their chance. And I feel that, much like with Batman Begins, Star Trek needed to go back to its roots. They needed to take it back to what's the core element of Star Trek that everyone remembers. Well, it's McCoy, Kirk, and Spock. Okay, Spock, Uhura, and Kirk, because apparently we have to care about women now. Ever since we gave them the right to vote, they've been insufferable. Kidding. But
we don't, just so that everyone knows, TV pop culture is not against women's rights.
We're not
Gumball
joking.
is only
I'm totally
kidding.
joking. It's all a joke. I love women.
Please don't send us angry emails.
Yeah, that was all a joke.
I get enough of those from kids' moms.
I was making fun of sexist people. They are insufferable. They never should have been given the right to vote. Sexist people.
What's wrong with being sexy?
Oh, you misunderstand me, my young friend. Anyway, Star Trek needs to go back. Star Trek needed to go back to its roots, and Star Wars needs to go back to its roots. And luckily they're not doing a reboot. They're respecting it, just like with Star Trek. They're respecting the continuity, and they're doing Episode 7. And to be frank, there's plenty of amazing stuff that they have to use as material. There's Mara Jade, there's all that stuff with Thrawn, and the actors are the right age. So I think it could be good.
Now, to a certain extent, I do have to disagree with you, because, okay, well, we'll admit, after Episode 3, I think that's the point where Lucas finally killed Star Wars. Star Trek, on the other hand, they didn't have to start over again. I mean, like you previously stated, there was both Voyager and DS9. They could have done a movie for one of those, like for DS9. They have to go looking for Cisco because for some reason, or Voyager teams up again and the crew reunites because there's
something catastrophic.
Exactly, like the Borg has a new queen.
They did that already.
When?
The Queen died in First Contact, remember? And then
didn't the timeline just get reset?
I don't know.
That's what I took.
They had a new queen on the series, and she was played by a different actress.
So that would be cool.
Besides, they already... they kind of dealt with the Borg in the final episode of Voyager. See, that's the thing. Star Trek had gotten tired. I mean, if they'd come up with a new villain, that would have been great. But, I mean, the Dominion had been dealt with, the Borg had effectively been dealt with, and there was nobody else interesting. I mean, you're kidding me?
Well, there is, and okay, I know this card is a little bit tired, but there's still the Romulans. I mean, they're still not with the Federation, and they still hate the Federation.
They blew up.
The
reboot blew up.
That was Vulcan.
No, Romulus blew up too. Remember? Remember Leonard Nimoy was in the movie? And he explained how...
but okay, if that movie had never happened, Romulus would still be there.
It's true, but how many times can you bring back the Romulans? I mean, they tried to bring them back for Nemesis, and then they brought in these weird vampire Romulans, and they basically implied that we're going to be friends with the Romulans now. So we're friends with the Romulans, we're friends with the Klingons. Who's left? I mean, oh my goodness, they might have to actually come up with something new. Which...
In my personal opinion, I think the only person alive today who can make a good Star Trek anything is Gene Roddenberry's son. That's my own personal opinion. You can hate it or love it, but it looks like we are out of time for the debate. You will be able to tune in for the featured episode, the news episode, by clicking a link down in the description box below when it becomes available,
You can either choose any of these,
or going to our Facebook page and or YouTube channel. I'm CJ,
I'm Noah, and I was completely neutral in this.
And I'm Long Ball.
and this has been a debate about Star Trek.
That was Star Wars.
Well, and Star Wars.
It became about Star Trek, didn't it?
Yeah. See you guys next time.